Well, I live in the Oakwood City School District, and in our community, our schools are our biggest strength. And so it's really important for the schools to have good communication, not just with the parents, but with all of the residents in the neighborhood. So they do that in a number of ways that have worked extremely well. We've got newsletters, newspaper articles, the internet. We've got a great website. They announce school closings on radio and TV. All of those things are great. And then a couple of years ago, they put in a system, a phone alert system, and it's called One Call Now. And we didn't realize how wonderful that system was until last year. Last year, during the hurricane, we discovered that that was the only way a lot of us got information, because many homes were without power for several days, actually weeks, 2 weeks. A lot of the community was without power, and then the schools were without power as well at first. And then after a couple of days, 4 of the 5 buildings opened, but 1 was still closed, and there was confusion as to who was going to school, who wasn't going to school, and then for those who were returning, what would happen. Like picture day, which was extremely traumatic for teenage girls. They needed to know, and all that information was communicated through the One Call Now system. It was wonderful because we couldn't use the internet. Many of us didn't have TV. I would just say communication is number one. You've got to figure out how to get the word out to parents, and not just parents, but other members in the community. For example, when the power was out which seemed like forever. There was actually one home that did not have power for 3.5 weeks. I can't imagine. But what the school invited, because they did have power and they had these large libraries and cafeterias, they invited people of the community into the school buildings to recharge cell phones, their computers, or whatever. And that was a very nice gesture, and the community appreciated it. And I would say communication is probably the number one thing in our community. I would say that is the most successful with our school district. A school district cannot do it alone. You have to have the involvement of the whole community, and not just the residents. It has to be the business leaders, the civic leaders, the public safety department, even the trash department. We're working on a recycling thing right now through the schools. Yes, you have to communicate with all aspects of the community and not just the parents. You know, I was sitting listening to all the speakers today, and I actually wasn't aware that this year's theme is Are You Ready, or Are You Ready? And I would say our school district is ready. Now, I don't know if that would have been the case if we didn't have One Call Now, because I could have seen a lot more we would have had a lot harder time getting through that last fall, but I would say we're ready.
I've had the great honor to represent the Ohio Chiefs of Police on Ohio Citizen Corps. And as I said previously, while this isn't as glamorous as chasing bank robbers and getting the bad guy and putting him in jail, this has probably been one of the most fulfilling opportunities of my professional career. To see the public and public safety come together and bridge that gap, working towards a common goal, is a great accomplishment. And our citizens of the state of Ohio should be recognized for that. You know, on the peripheral, yes, we have. We've seen our citizens go to Katrina on a national level. They weren't asked to go there. They went there as a volunteer. On a statewide level, we've seen it in northern Ohio, in Hancock County and Findlay, with the tremendous flooding we've had, where people weren't ordered to go. They volunteered. And in my own community, during Hurricane Ike, of all things, I witnessed some of our volunteers assist an 80-year-old widow clean up her property and repair her property and secure her home after it was heavily damaged due to the winds. What we have to look at is the intent of volunteering and what it's about. And it's service above self. It's the right thing to do. We have to look at it as a philosophy. It's not a program, and it's not a process. Because when we look at programs and processes, they end. Philosophies go on for all time. We need to develop that philosophy with our citizens, with our private sector partners, and with our public sector partners also. With Hurricane Ike, our citizens came together. That was on a very large community event that we have. It happened on the same day. So I guess it's fortunate that we had our volunteers in one spot where they could just go out into the community and assist. We're very fortunate. Our volunteer and police organizations has been recognized as the best police volunteer organization in the United States recently. Part of the reason I volunteer and became involved in volunteerism was a result of my position with the Ohio Chiefs Association, representing them as the liaison to Ohio Citizen Corps. But that soon grew to a much greater calling, especially when I started dealing with a lot of the private and public sector individuals who are committed to the concept of volunteerism. It became much more of just a job and into a passion to do things for someone else. I relate this also to my children. When I was growing up, there weren't many opportunities to volunteer. We weren't given those opportunities. In today's world, my children, who are 25, 22, and 19, volunteer on a regular basis. And they've been indoctrinated to understand that that is the right thing to do, and serving others is the right thing to do. So for them, it's just a natural thing that they do, volunteer to help others when in times of need. This year's theme is, Are You Ready, or Are You Ready? And with our volunteer group on a local level, I'm very confident to say that we are ready. They've already displayed that they are ready to respond in times of need. And they do that quite frequently, not necessarily during a disaster, but even within their own little organization. If one of the members becomes ill, they make sure that person is taken care of. We had an elderly lady who had broken her hip. They provided meals and transportation for her. They are absolutely ready to be called on a local level or to be called on a statewide level. So we are very lucky to have the citizen volunteers that we have in our community.
The Xenia Tornado, 1975. I was a very foolish teenager, and I was actually going to visit a friend of mine that I was in college with. I was in my freshman year at Wright State, and I knew there was I knew there was a storm. I didn't realize there were tornadoes. And I drove home through all of those tornadoes in my little 1965 Dodge Dart, thinking, oh, look, it's raining. I can't believe it scares me to death when I think about it now. That, of course, having raised a teenager, I realize how foolish that was and why I did it, because teenagers think they're invincible. But that gave me an inkling of what it was like to be in a major disaster because of the people in the Xenia was wiped off the map. Our roof was taken off. Pretty much our roof had to be replaced on our home, and we lived probably a good 30 miles from Xenia. That was definitely a turning point for me in recognition of, what elements of nature could really do to disrupt your home life, your family. I think the experience in Xenia was just like maybe you'd say a starting point for me. I evolved over the years, from that teenager, not thinking or not planning. And since that time, I've been actually involved in a couple of other, you'd say near disasters. When I was in the military, I was stationed in Italy, and there was a earthquake in Italy in 1980. It was 1980, 1981, a horrendous earthquake in the Naples area that left thousands and thousands of people homeless. And I was fortunate enough to be far enough north of the epicenter to not be affected, but I saw all the efforts that went into helping the people and the tragedy of that. I also went through an ice storm here in Ohio in 2004 that left everyone in my family except myself without electricity. I was very fortunate. I was on just one street that was not affected. Our power never went out during that ice storm. I don't know how that happened, but at least we were able to provide a warm place to sleep, hot food and everything for the family members. And then I lived in California for a few years and saw the devastation of the forest fires. in the San Fernando Valley where I was living. And since that, these last several incidents, I've realized the importance of actually being prepared, or at least doing my part to be prepared. I can't be prepared for everyone, but I can be prepared for myself and my husband, and I thought we can help our children be prepared. Our children are grown and married now, but last year for Christmas, I bought backpacks and made emergency preparedness kits, for lack of a better term. I mean, I think that's an excellent term. I don't know exactly what I told them. These are your get ready to go kits or something like that. And packed some of the things that I thought were essential, some of the things that are recommended. Obviously, you can't put 5 gallons of water in a backpack, but that's an understanding that you need to have things like that, but you also need to have some dried food and a change of clothes and a can opener, some bandages, which being a nurse, I always have to throw in a few first aid things, some hand sanitizer, alcohol rubs, and then I packed backpacks for the children as well. I got small children-sized backpacks and thought this is an excellent opportunity to teach children to be aware that when there's an emergency, when something happens, you have a plan and you are part of that plan. You may only be 6 years old, but it's, Samuel, there's an emergency. We need to be ready. Go get your backpack out of your closet. It also gives them a task, and I think it makes them feel like they're involved. And they have their backpack. It has some of the things that they need. I put a few snack things like trail mix and, a couple of packaged snack bars with a long shelf life, and then an extra toothbrush, a change of underwear, a pair of socks, and a couple of small toys like a coloring book and crayons, things like that, so that they would also be prepared and be involved and be part of the solution. Interestingly enough, I found out today that this year's theme in Ohio is Are You Ready? Or Are You Ready? And I thought that was pretty apropos because I feel like for the first time in my life, I am ready, at least as ready as I can be. And I also feel very good about the fact that I've helped my family to be ready too. And hopefully I can send that message out to other people to be ready.